This new moon in Leo on July 24th, 2025 can be demonstrated by the story of a social experiment that the Washington Post did in collaboration with the globally renowned violinist named Joshua Bell. The Washington Post wanted to see if the environment could affect how well people recognized and responded to exquisite talent. Now, Joshua Bell was a performer who would pack auditoriums with thousands of people who were paying good sums of money to see him perform. So during this experiment, the Washington Post had him not in an auditorium, but in a subway station in Washington, D.C. He played for 45 minutes, and only 7 people stopped to watch him play. This experiment demonstrates that your environment matters. And that is what this new moon in Leo is helping us learn. In addition to that, this new moon in Leo is preparing us to make the most out of 2026. And I'm going to explain a little bit here in a second why that is. The sun and the moon are always conjunct during a new moon, and the number 2 in numerology is associated with relationships, communication, and relating. It is in opposition to Pluto, which is at 2 degrees in Aquarius. Now, Leo and Aquarius, they're at polar opposite ends of the zodiac, and they're at polar opposite ends energetically, characteristically. And they have 2 very different points of view as to how the interplay between the individual and the community should play out. For Leo, it's all about individuality. And for Aquarius, its motto is, the needs of the many outnumber the needs of the few. Now, with this being in opposition, we may have a tendency to want to avoid this analysis. An opposition isn't like a square where there's an active, engaging conflict. An opposition is like, oh, I just don't want to deal with you. So there may be group affiliations, communities, organizations that we are a part of that we have just simply outgrown. And there's some good reasons why we might want to avoid this reanalysis of our group affiliations. We have been through the gauntlet of relationship changes over the last 2.5 years. And I'm not just talking intimate relationships. I'm also referring to business partnerships, group affiliations, friendships, family. Those relationships have either very much changed over the last 2.5 years, or they have gone away. And with this being an Aquarius-Leo opposition, the relationships that are going to be underneath the magnifying glass right now are going to be, how do we relate to larger groups in the whole? So this can be political affiliations, clubs. This can include churches. This can include your blood family. This can include your neighborhood. This could include what type of companies you want to work with or work for. It's going to be more of a reanalysis of how we want to be affiliated in general. Mercury being in retrograde is an amplifying our ability to go internally and to reanalyze our needs and who we are now. Because for many of us, who we are now may be a very different variation of ourselves than 2.5 years ago. And we may be finding ourselves more ready to be more ourselves, to express more of who we are. There may be things that you want to say in a more public light that you have not said yet. And what kind of groups are going to be supportive of that? So the good thing is that you don't have to necessarily take action on what it is that you find out between now and really through into September. It's going to go beyond just the full moon in a couple of weeks. But it is going to ask us to make a commitment to whatever truth it is that you uncover. So some questions that might be really helpful for this reanalysis to decide what comes next for you is, what role do you want to play in different communities, different organizations, different clubs? How do you want to be regarded? What do you want people to know about you, or whatever it is that you're wanting to express? Are your current affiliations, are they supportive and nurturing of your unique qualities, your unique gifts, your unique traits? Are there certain relationships that still feel stifling to your creativity, to your ideas? Do you find yourself holding your tongue maybe a bit too much within certain organizations, certain structures. And this could be your job, this could be your marriage, this could be friendships, but it also could be certain clubs, certain networking groups. Maybe some of these groups at one point in time were really supportive, but they just really don't have the same kind of camaraderie that they once did. Just like Joshua Bell. If Joshua Bell was a new violinist just starting out his career and he just wanted to get comfortable with playing in front of the public, then setting up in the subway to get some practice would be a great idea. But that's not where he was anymore. He was an accomplished musician. He had outgrown the subway. So during this new moon, we may feel where we are the most restricted, what relationships are stifling us. Whatever it is that is stifling needs to go. So this new moon is asking us not to be the lily that grows through the cracks of the concrete. It doesn't always have to be so hard. It's asking us to move into a time, into a phase of our life where we get to flourish because of our environment. We get to flourish because of who we're surrounded by, not despite it. There may need to be some really tough decisions in the next 6 months that might have to occur, but ultimately they will lead us to more grace and more ease, more ways where you get to be free to be me. So this transition into this new phase where eventually we will find community groups and friendships that are more aligned with us than the ones that we've had to let go of, it may require that we walk through a temporary time where we feel somewhat alone. So sometimes the reason why we don't let go of these partnerships that we've outgrown is because there is a fear of who am I without these partnerships. There might be a fear of some sort of financial loss or some sort of retaliation, passive aggressive, power grabs, that type of thing. You know, there might be a fear of conflict. These are all fears that might come up as we contemplate what kind of shifts we need to make that will allow us to be more free. And that right there is going to be the kicker. Because if we go into fear, when all of these planets start retrograding back to where they were at the beginning of 2025, so Saturn and Neptune, they're in Aries right now, but they're going to start to slide back into Pisces in September. And then we have Uranus that is also going to slide on back into Taurus at the end of the fall in November. We're going to revisit some of that old energy and we're going to be asked to resolve it for one last time, because coming in February of 2026, all of those planets, they start making their way back into Aries for Saturn and Neptune, and finally Uranus will find itself firmly in Gemini for the long haul for 7 years. Where for most of us, Uranus and Gemini is much more comfortable than Uranus and Taurus. So for this fall, there might be some of those fears that we face during this new moon that really come to fruition in the fall as we start to revisit and tie up all the loose ends and, sweep the crumbs up, do everything that needs to be done in order to finally close this chapter. If we allow ourselves to capitulate to fear, then that ending may be more long and drawn out. This is the time to get clear on what it is that you need to do and face those fears, make strategic planning, maybe create even some fail-safes if you can, so that when the February of 2026 rolls around and we're finally landing into this new beginning, for reals this time, then you will already have done all of your due diligence and 2026 will roll out a lot more gracefully than it would if we're still shackled back with old stuff from the past. So primarily what it is that we need to know from this new moon is that we cannot wait for the permission of others to be more ourselves. So the reflection is not the outside in, the reflection has to be from the inside out. You're the one that changes the environment. The environment, in this particular case, is not set up to change you. You're the one that gets to change your relationships instead of vicariously choreographing yourself to fit the relationships that you were already in. And I explain the process of how to radiate versus resonate, especially as a highly sensitive or empathic person, in the 6-week Turn Your Sensitivities into Strength program. And if you'd like more information on that and you would like to be part of the wait list, then go ahead and click the link below and you will be kept in the loop. So with all that being said, let's take a look and pull a few cards to see how we might best leverage this new moon in Leo energy to serve our best and highest good. All right, so the very first card that comes up is Temperance reversed. So there is some opportunity here to create an amalgamation of everything that you've experienced over the last 2.5 years. This is saying that we're kind of caught right now in an all or nothing kind of mindset, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. And that same message gets repeated again here in a second, and I'll get to that in a minute. That what it is that we need is we need to just kind of cut through the BS, cut through all of the distractions, the over-analysis. The King of Swords is asking us to make a decision. So whatever it is that you decide is best for you, don't allow yourself to get distracted by doubt. You probably already know what it is that you need to do. So the next two cards that come up is Ace of Pentacles and the Wheel of Fortune reversed. Now, which is interesting is because these two energies are completely opposite. We have pennies from heaven, energy moving, resources flowing, and then we have the Wheel of Fortune, which is like we're just looping and we feel stuck. We're spinning our wheels. This tells me that the all or nothing mindset that we were talking about earlier with the Temperance reversed, that is coming up in relationship specifically to material resources and money. So might be a resistance to letting go of certain relationships, certain networks, business affiliations, jobs, perhaps even marriages because of money. But the thing is that this is keeping us in a mental loop, but the Ace of Pentacles is right side up, meaning that there will be enough money. You are completely supported in making the changes that you need to make, and the money is going to come. And the way that we do that is intuition, and also it's about following the third path, not the extremes. So the High Priestess, she sits between the two extremes of mercy and justice. This is all or nothing. She represents a third option. Again, the amalgamation between the dark and the light, the amalgamation between, what we perceive as the good and the bad, the comfortable, the uncomfortable, pain and pleasure in life. The third path that kind of allows us to step away from the extreme all or nothing kind of mindset is the attitude of curiosity. The High Priestess is saying that there is a third option for you. It isn't all or nothing. It isn't as black and white as you might think. And that this third option, a renegotiation, an amalgamation, a composite of the two extremes, may also address some of these money concerns. This might mean having to make sacrifices in certain ways, but not in others. So part of this reanalysis as you are analyzing what comes next for you is not just asking what role do you want to play in these new communities, how do you want to be regarded or perceived, but it's also asking what are your priorities and what do you value? What are your non-negotiables? And answering that question can really help you define what boundaries are absolutely important to fortify and what areas can you be a little bit more mutable with. Our feelings should be honored. Our feelings are valid, but our feelings are also subjective. And that is really what the Wheel of Fortune is here to tell us, that it isn't actually, however it is that we're feeling about our resources right now. This could be both time, money, housing, networking opportunities. It's anything that is associated with material resources, that any feeling of lack is more of a perception than really the reality that the material resources are not available. They're out there. We just need to ask the right questions and be willing to do what it is that we need to do in order to have alignment, which also might mean that we have to face some fears. Being more yourself is synonymous with living your purpose. And unfortunately for highly empathic, highly sensitive people and starseeds, this is something that can be really difficult because we often struggle with a feeling of alienation and just being different. So if that resonates with you, then click the link below to be the first to know about the upcoming launch of the free Star Seed Survival Kit. It comes complimentary with the new Be the Whole You app that will be launching soon. If you are not already a subscriber, then click the subscribe button and the bell icon, because there is plenty of new content that will be rolling out soon that is going to explain how we can use practical spirituality and metaphysics to master this simulation. Thank you for joining me here, and I'll see you soon.